And a lot of times, and I tell people all the time, because one thing people would say, I would hear people say about the Bible, they would say, well, it contradicts itself because the Bible says when God says he's a jealous God, how can you be jealous if that's a sin? I said, well, what does jealous mean in Hebrew? The whole room got quiet. I said, exactly. So Hebrew, in Hebrew, jealous, the word is means of someone of extreme a passion for. So it was translated into jealous because you can get an understanding. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the Hebrew word, it's of having great passion for. So when he says that, it's saying that I have great love and passion for you. But when you translate it, it says it. So when they heard it, they're like, oh, okay. So even when you're saying it's being rewritten, you one of those people I need to say, you need to go, if you go back to it, I don't know where your stance is now, but most people I would suggest go get you the verses, because it's we're in the information age. You know what I mean? So everything is available. Yeah. So I would say to a person like NLE, anybody else who's willing to, because some people ain't willing. And look, it ain't my job to push nobody to do nothing. So, but I would suggest to somebody like NLE, I would in this situation would say, get you a Bible, find you those. I know they got the Blue Letter Bible. They have the, what else is it called? It's the Blue Letter. It's the Strong Concordance, and breaks down a lot of those verses and their original meanings and what it was, so that way it can and tie it back to the verse and the timing and the context, to really sit there and get it break by break, and also really sitting with God during that process too, because I'm very smart. I'm a toot my own horn. I go in most rooms. I'm probably one of the smartest person in the room. People would never think it because how I act and how I dress, but I still know that I can't do it all on my own. So all for, being intelligent, which I think NLE is, and I think a lot of people are. But one thing I try not to do, and I have to catch myself too, is I can be like, I'm too smart for this. And I think that when we do that, we do ourselves a disservice. So with NLE, that's what I would say to NLE. And to Jonathan Majors, I would just, if I was in NLE's spot, I would probably say, I don't know, because I think because he was the youngest in the room, he don't want to look like the angry YN. So it was probably like, I would say, hey, I don't know what I would say. Well, I'll leave that to you. What would you say if you was NLE Choppa?
In response to Jonathan Majors?
Yeah.
I would ask further questions.
Yeah.
Okay, read the Bible. Okay, well, what part are you talking about? Like, what do you recommend, Jonathan? Yeah. What section? What chapter? What would you recommend that I read specifically? If you're just saying go read the whole thing entirely again, okay. But if I already read it, I'm giving you my full. I could have read it 5 times already. You don't know, right? And I'm talking about them two in this situation. He wouldn't know that. You're right. So I would start asking more questions. Okay, well, what do you mean by that? Give me some, chapters, verses that you feel like I should take in. With my, per my statement.
No, for sure. WWJD, funny fact, what would Jesus do? So in this situation, honestly, I would tell, and Nick, going back to NLE, what I had to do when I first really started reading the Bible, it was suggested that I read the Gospels, which was Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which was detailing Jesus, and then kind of going back and, some people who are religious, and they would say, well, you need to read the Bible in order, but that's not necessarily the case. And even that's a debate amongst some people. They say, well, you have to read it in order, or they don't understand this and they understand that. But you really have to, I believe there's a certain level of open-mindedness you should have with it, because certain things, and really with everything, because, this generation, again, taking spirituality out of it, our minds can be a little too open. And we're going to leave it at that for right now. We can be a little too open. So I think it needs to still be some type of boundary and restraint. But I think that, I'm all for people seeking knowledge. And I'm a firm believer that things will come at you at the right time. I'm a firm believer in that. Even if you're going down the wrong path, whatever that path is, I believe things will come to you when they're supposed to, especially if you have good intentions. And you just never know. I believe anybody can be used to communicate a message. WSMD, because I got something I'm about to say. So what should men do in this situation? Honestly, keep having conversations like that. I'm for that. I'm for getting people who are all these different backgrounds especially men, because we see it with women. Why don't we see it with men? I've been saying that for years. Why do we only see The View? Why do we see The Real? Why do we see the talk? All these shows with just women.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's never a show that could be like that with men. I never understood that.
I mean,
and go ahead.
Oh, I was about to say, yeah. I mean, you get it with sports, but yeah,
Right. That's it. That's all we can talk about.
Yeah, with regular conversations, or you're right. We don't see it enough with men. You're right.
No, and I think we're kind of we're transitioning into that, because when you made a comment about my podcast, and again, I appreciate it when you say you actually talking about real stuff. I remember going to podcast studio, and again, I hope if LP see this, LP, I love you, and I'm not mad at this statement. I appreciate it, because he was asking me about my podcast, and he said, and I told him, and he paused, and he said, "Do you think people really want to hear about that?" I said, "I know they want to hear about it, because." Somebody else in the room, I think when they heard about it, she was just like, well, I mean, we all have to make the decision to pay our rent. And I'm like, okay, because I knew at that point what I said went over their heads. And for those who don't know what I said I have a podcast that caters to young millennial men who are mental health conscious and struggle with making healthy decisions. So with that, that's all of my topics, right? The live stream is still under that umbrella, but next week's episode, well, not this week, but next week's episode talks about how to overcome low self-esteem as a man, right?
Mm-hmm.
We talked about tricking that women trick too, but that's mainly a male sport, right? So those things are all under that, if you may be struggling with that.